The Utah Jazz do something new. Lose, but nothing about the outing should change the feelings on the upward tick of this basketball game. A successful night without a W for the Utah Jazz. Next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Here's what we got today. We're going to look back at last night's game. Jazz offensively were brilliant, defensively adjust throughout the night to show a lot of signs of growth. Bit by bit and openness, the theme of Will Hardy and Mark Dagnall, two of the hottest coaches in the NBA last night in the pregame. And the points gained Friday. We'll take a look at the last 10 games. We'll take that, and we'll take a look at names you might be interested in acquiring in the trade deadline, with a little bit of a caveat on that as well. That's what we've got coming up on the Friday edition of Locked on Jazz. Thank you for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. We are also available on YouTube. Please give us a thumbs up in YouTube. That actually helps a lot more than I ever talk about. And I hate playing the algorithm game, but it certainly matters. So please give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Helps out a great deal. Subscribe, follow. It's all free. And you'll get notified every time we launch out an episode for you. We head on a long road trip today, so there'll be a lot of fun stuff coming your direction. Jazz fall last night to the Thunder, who are really, really good. In fact, in doing the prep for the show today, the Thunder have some real signs of a championship caliber team, more than I want to admit, because every time I see them, it makes my blood boil. But when we get into points gained today, they have built borderline one player, the pretty much perfect points gained team, which makes you think that they might really, really be able to put something together here in impressive fashion. By the way, today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA to use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA to get your first deposit match up to $100. So Jazz lose last night. Bad first quarter, but some really good signs. Oklahoma City's really, really good defensively. Seventh best defensive team in the NBA. Jazz put out the 8th best performance of the season against the Thunder. So the Clippers actually torched them pretty good last time out. And the Jazz were able to follow it. I don't think if you're the Thunder, I'd be too worried about it. But so far this year, the Thunder have had kind of 5 games defensively where they weren't very good. Last night was the 8th best performance against them. The Jazz had an offensive ranking of a 124.3. The only teams, actually it was the 7th best. The only teams, Washington in a game which the Thunder won, so they probably didn't, and then losses to Philadelphia, the Lakers, Atlanta, Golden State, Denver, and the Clippers. So some pretty darn good basketball teams right there. The only other teams to put that up on the Thunder, Boston was close, but 0.1 behind the Jazz in one of their performances. So again, Washington, but that's a game where the Thunder won. Otherwise, Philadelphia, Lakers, Atlanta, surprisingly, Golden State, maybe Shea didn't play, would be worth checking. Golden State, Denver, and the Clippers. So that's really good. Jazz last night with the 8th best offensive performance against the Thunder, or 7th best now against the Thunder all season long. And, the Jazz do it again, 33 assists. They had a great, so they're back up over 30 assists. They had a great spot up game, which Scott Morrison in our pregame, he's so awesome. He's just a cool dude, first of all. I just am like, you start to meet these people in the league and they're just cool characters and interesting and seems very heartfelt and real. It's probably because he's Canadian. I was just always say that, like, the best part about Seattle when I lived there was it was 4 hours to Canada. So nonetheless, Canadian Chamber of Commerce, I thought the Jazz just did a lot of things really, really well last night, offensively. And Scott, before the game today, if we keep our eyes out and we hit some things to get to the right spots, we'll be able to get some looks that'll be advantageous to us. They overshift. We can take advantage of that. I think we saw that. It's interesting that I don't think what I also thought was the Jazz got 16 corner threes. They went 8 of 16 on corner threes. That's the shot they were looking for last night. We've become a very heavy paint non-restricted area team. I don't love it, but that's our personnel right now. So I do think, I love analytics. I think the game of basketball gives you some things you have to take every now and then. And right now, for a lot of our guys, that area on the floor is what we're getting. The league takes away, a lot of leagues take away the rim. Chet Holmgren takes away the rim, so we became very heavy point in that area. But offensively, we were terrific last night, and that's a great sign, because if you look at what this team has done over the last 14 games, when it came into this game, and I could update it if you need me to, as a team that was 12-2 in the last stretch, one of the biggest changes is just that we're really good offensively. And by being really good offensively, you're able, I think it helps out your defense a great deal. In fact, last night, the Thunder are the number one team in the NBA of getting in transition, and they're the number one team in the league at denying transition. Well, it's quite a combination. Well, last night, they did not crush us in transition. I think they had more transition points than we did, but they didn't crush us in transition, which, frankly, there was a real chance coming into this game they could. I believe they had 29 points in transition. They were really, really good, 1.6. Points per possession, we had 22 points in transition, but that's really, one of the areas where the game changed. They had 11 transition points in the first quarter. And then we kind of quieted it down as the night went on. So this is where, and we'll get into this in the next segment, bit by bit, piece by piece. Mark Daigneault and Will Hardy's press conferences yesterday were really fascinating. Two of the hottest coaches in the NBA. It's where the Thunder win games. Like, they get a +7 in transition. You've got to make up those 7 points somewhere. We never made them up, but we didn't get crushed there. And I think, the fact that our offense is running at a higher level is allowing our defense to have a chance. The biggest change for the Jazz has been their defensive effective field goal percentage. They went from being, 20th in the league to 10th in the league, or 21st in the league. They're 21st in the league for the year. They're 6th in the last 14 games in defensive effective field goal percentage. Now, that probably means we're about 26th and then 6th, right? Well, the same thing offensively with our shooting. We're 20th in the league, but the last 14 games we're 10th. Otherwise, other than getting the free throw line a lot more. So the two things we've done a lot more recently is made shots and got the free throw line offensively. Well, we did the same thing to them last night against, one of the better defensive teams that we've played all year. And a team that Will Hardy said in post game, they challenge every gather, which is an interesting way to talk about, but they really do. They got their hands and they're swiping and da-da-da. And, we haven't played in our stretch here where we've played well. We've really only played one or two good defensive teams. Boston is number 2 defensively. They throttled us. We played Cleveland without Mobley, but they beat us. We haven't played Orlando. We play Houston coming up here as the 5th best defensive team in the league. We played Philadelphia, but without Embiid. We played Oklahoma City, played New Orleans. They beat us. We haven't played the Clippers, and we play the Knicks coming up here 10. So while we've been on this recent run, this was really other than Boston and Cleveland, 2 teams that beat us, and Cleveland did it without all their guys. We haven't played top 10 defensive teams to see what we were going to do against it. And so for us to have that kind of an offensive game last night, I thought shoot 48%, 41% from 3. The turnovers came back to get us for a little while, but then we calmed down with it with 15. We weren't very good early, or they weren't, I don't know how to say that. So anyway, I thought that was, probably the most impressive or positive aspect. The Thunder are really, really good. And I'll get into that coming up here. Like, first of all, Jalen Williams is great. But then defensively, we were brutal to start. I just think we were a step slow early in the game, but also I think they're really good. In the first quarter, they took 14 shots in the paint, 4 at the rim, 10 in the paint, non-restricted. Again, I don't love that shot, but they went 7 of 10, and that's Shea. So they get 14 shots in the paint in quarter 1. They get 14 shots in the paint in quarter 2. In quarter 2, they go 8 of 9 at the rim. Oh my gosh. Well, and then we tighten it up. Then they only get 8 shots in the paint, only 4 at the rim in the third quarter. And they only get 5 shots in the paint and only 2 shots in the rim. So really encouraging how the Jazz were able to kind of evolve throughout the night. I think they allowed 42 points in the paint in the first half and 14 in the second half. And, the Thunder are great. They made some shots. The above the break 3 is a big one. They went 9 of 21. But this is a team that went from being 23rd in the league in shooting to 2nd. We talked about it yesterday. The everydayers have heard this. We talked about this yesterday on the program. This is a team that somehow went from being 23rd in the league in shooting, 28th 2 years ago, to 2nd in the league in shooting this year. They're one of the best catch and shoot teams in the league, and they got it going last night. And the only thing, the Jazz asked Will Hardy about the defensive changes, and the Jazz, Will Hardy, and we'll dig into this a little bit tomorrow, or actually we won't because tomorrow's Saturday. We'll dig into it next week, where Will said, the biggest change we've made is corner. We've defended the rim better, and we've allowed less corner threes. We're allowing way too many corner threes. This is a really interesting comment from Will because it has something to do with where the zone has been effective. So let me touch into that. Coming up here, we'll also talk about bit by bit and some really good signs out of Lauri Markkanen and some other pieces. Mark Dagnall and Will Hardy were super interesting. And then we'll dig into points gained because I keep getting asked, well, who, according to points gained, should we be trying to acquire in the trade deadline? So we'll look at that. And the context of that question probably needs some points as well. It is Locked On Jazz, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross and in Logan. Chevy's Americana, the Silverado and the Colorado trucks are two of the greatest trucks out there on the market. The Chevy truck is made in a way that's just like a little better than everyone else. It's just Chevy, right? It's Americana. And the Murdochs are Utah. They're 80 plus years in the state of Utah, giving you no regrets each and every time. So if you're in the market for a new truck, Murdoch Chevy is the place for you to get involved with the new truck. Murdoch Chevy, located in Woods Cross and in Logan. If you're going to stop by, please email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock, L-O-C-K-E, 09@gmail.com. I'll set you up with the VIP meeting. Make sure you get taken care of. By the way, the SUV lineups are greatly improved. The Blazer and the Trailblazers changed it, and the Tahoe and the Suburban. Those are the signatures that are a part of Chevy. If you're going to stop by, make sure you email me first. It's Murdoch Chevy. Today's show is also brought to you by eBay, and it's time now for your eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. eBay's got the Guaranteed Fit. Josh Lloyd is the number one fantasy basketball host in the country, Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Here's what Josh Lloyd says your eBay Guaranteed Fit should be for this week. Here are the players he thinks you should look at. G.G. Jackson. Memphis needs shot creation. Gigi can do it. He's shown flashes. He should be in someone's managers. Can look to grab and see how Memphis deploys. Mason Plumlee is the new starter for at least 4 weeks for the Clippers. He can be a serviceable center for your fantasy team while you wait for Zubac to return. Aaron Nesmith's role should be more secure in Indiana with Bruce Brown gone. His shooting and defensive value is important for fantasy managers. Jabari Walker, if you're looking for a bit of a flyer, started next to Jeremy Grant Wednesday for the Blazers. And Marvin Bagley III with Daniel Gafford in concussion protocol. Bagley has a shot for nice minutes on his new team. Those are your eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Pick of the Week. With over 122 million parts of your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED light, headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs. It's eBay Motors has it, and eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit. It's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Hope you win your fantasy league thanks to Josh Lloyd and eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Thank you as well for all the everydayers and making Locked On what it is. Remember, every Jazz game can be heard on Sirius XM, your local broadcast. All play-by-play is available on Sirius XM. So Will already made the comment, and we'll dig into it a little bit more, that the defense has gotten better because they're defending the rim better. And they're allowing less corner threes. So it's super interesting because we play a lot of zone. The rim is what the zone's supposed to deny. And last night, the Thunder get 19 shots at the rim, which is in the 12th percentile. So great, again, against the fourth best offensive team in the league. The Jazz do exactly what they've been doing really, really well, which is denying teams at the rim. And the Thunder, by the way, just to put it in perspective, so just because they're good doesn't mean they get to the rim a lot. The Thunder are not a particularly heavy rim team. They're league average. They shoot on average 33% of their shots at the rim, and last night they shot 24% of their shots at the rim. So that's just, early on, that's certainly, we just ran through the numbers. That wasn't the case, but the defense adjusts. They make the plays. The Jazz get way better. The second one is corner threes. So last night, the Jazz weren't as good against that. the Jazz have done a better job at 9 corner threes. Jazz were like last in the league at 9. Last night, the Thunder got 11% of their shots at corner threes, and they make 5 of 11, which is a little bit of a killer. They didn't take a lot of above the break threes, which is kind of the shot the Jazz have been willing to deal with. But the Jazz defense kept the Thunder half court offense, which is number 1 in the NBA, to a 101.1. So again, with a not great first quarter, the Jazz defense was able to keep the Thunder kind of in the middle as an average offensive team in the half court last night. So really just such a positive night, I think, in so many ways last night for the Jazz, even though it's a loss. I mean, what it really does is reconfirms where the Jazz are. For the Thunder, by the way, that half court game last night, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 was 11th worst half court game that they've played all season long. So now, we still lost, but you're seeing all the pieces against one of the best teams in the NBA where you're able to do that. So really, yeah, you can have your expectations having gone 12-2. I don't expect us. It'd be nice to win home games. We could lose. We lost a home game. We hadn't done that in 9. And I don't really expect us to beat the Bostons and the Philadelphias and the Milwaukees, the Oklahoma Cities, and at full strength very often. So we shall see whether we can do it. Standings wise, by the way, the Jazz now sit at 22-21, still a half game ahead of the Lakers, game and a half behind Phoenix. Sacramento has fallen into the play-in and is reeling, and we're a game and a half ahead of Houston. So a big matchup coming our direction on Saturday. And then we go on to play a nice little road trip here, which will be interesting to see. New Orleans is playing brilliantly, having won 7 of 10. They're probably the other hottest team. And then from New Orleans, we play DC, Washington, who's not very good. They're 7-33. Then we play Charlotte, who's 8-30. Then we go to play the Knicks, who have won 8 of their last, or we play Brooklyn first, who've only won 1 of their last 10. So 3 games in the middle there where we could get well a little bit on the road before the Knicks, who have won 8 of 10, and we could be fairly exhausted by the 6th game of that road trip. All right, last night, Mark Dagnall and Will Hardy both talked to the media before the game, and I just thought there was, first of all, the 2 hottest coaches in the NBA. Like the Lakers were in town literally talking about, we need a Mark Dagnall or a Will Hardy. There are other coaches that are coaching very, very well. And I think Nick Nurse's standing has increased. He's already won a title. So 2 of the young best coaches in the league probably be the way to say it. And JB Bickerstaff is certainly having a good little stretch here in Cleveland and has done some good things with them. So I think, let's make sure everyone gets credit. I always think most of these coaches are fabulous in the league. There's a reason they have great staffs. They work very, very hard. It's impressive, to see what all of them do. But Will and Mark are becoming kind of signature young under 40 coaches. Mark Dagnall was really, really interesting. He just talked a little bit about like bit by bit, which I thought was an interesting concept. And he's talked before about the one grabbing a percent here and a percent here and a percent here. And Mark and I've talked about that on a few occasions. But like here he's talking about the fact that, from even just developmental standpoint, can you just bit by bit? That he was really, really interesting about development. He talked about that what they try to do is give the players, the foundation of what their franchise believes in. So that, we're going to reverse the ball. We're going to do these. This is signatures of who we are. But then from there, they really just try to let the players go and give them an openness to play however it is that they deem. And they'll show you where they are in the process. Jalen Williams is showing he's borderline all-star. I mean, he probably is deserving of an all-star, frankly. And Chet Holmgren's showing them where they are. Those 2 are emerging, and both are just awesome. Like the 3 guys they have just may be great. Jalen Williams, I think, was 11 of 14 last night. Last 10 games, he's shooting 63%. But his point was we just put them out there and we let them go, and they kind of show us where they are, and they show us where they need to be, and they show us where they are in the process. And then we can work from there. Each guy kind of goes at a different pace and a different time. And he was talking, and it started a little bit where he was talking about Lauri and some of that. So I thought that was really interesting. And then he talked a lot about just how you can add efficiency as a player. And so he was talking about just, whether it's being more efficient, getting out one step back in front of Colin Sexton faster than you would have otherwise, not just offensively. And a lot of these things that Dagnall was talking about were just this little tiny increments you're trying to do. I think, from a fan standpoint, we sit here and we want these really obvious moments and things to let us know where a franchise is and what they're doing. And he's kind of saying like, they're just tiny, right? They're tiny incremental things. Thunder have made a massive jump, but he would believe they've all come from these just kind of tiny additions as they get better and better and better. One of those that's happening is actually with Lauri Markkanen. We don't run a lot of ISO, but last night, 3 times we put him, I think it was 3 times we put him just free throw line, isolate at the elbow. They were switching, got Case and Wallace in the post on him a few times. So Lauri is about 100th in the league in isolation attempts. So this is, let's be a little careful here. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the 8th best isolation player in the NBA of the top 100. He's run 500 isolations this year. Like, there's not another guy in the top 15 that's run 250. Jokic, I think, is the only other one at 250. Luka's run 515, right? So these two guys are running just, dramatically more. Lauri has run a grand total of 69 isolations, 2 or 3 a night. However, if you recall last year, to start the year, Lauri had really, really good isolation numbers. And in the second half of the season, they fell off the cliff when the floor spacing got less good and things. Lauri is now the 15th best isolation player in the NBA, points per chance. Now, on direct actions off him, he's less good. He is adding the passes. 4 assists last night was great. But he's not super terrific at getting off the ball the way he probably needs to learn. But we did isolate him a bunch of times last night, and he really worked hard and powered through it and showed some signs, little bit by bit here, of him making the next step and growing and doing what he's doing. Now, I mean, per 100 possessions, he's getting about 3 isolations a game, which is, super low, right? It's not there, but he's getting efficient at it, right? He's 1.14 points per possession. Somebody like Paul George is right in that range, but Paul George is doing it 11 times a game. Luka's doing it 20 times a game, is in that range. Joel Embiid's doing it 16. DeMar DeRozan's doing it 14. So it's not fair to say, I wouldn't want to say Lauri's the 15th best isolation player in the league because he's only doing it in select circumstances, probably when he has a massive mismatch. Whereas, Paul George, DeRozan, Luka, Shai are just coming down and going ISO on you and just beating you. And they don't care who's guarding you. And it's a vastly different thing. It's a vastly different thing for the offense to be able to do that. Kawhi is at 15 a game. But I do think we're seeing some signs of being able to use Lauri and get Lauri the ball in some different manners than we've seen before. And that is one or 2 of his pieces of his isolation game that I think are important. Walker, I thought, had a really, really good game last night also. So wanted to point that out. Walker is probably one of the best games that Walker's had. All right, points gained. Who are the players in the trade deadline that you want to look at points gained wise? Points gained is our offensive metric that evaluates players' offensive players. We'll look at, if I was an opposing team looking down at players, I got about 12 names. None of them are as sexy as you want them to be. But we'll talk about that concept as we continue here on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the #1 daily fantasy sports game. Super fun, leading fantasy sports game in all of North America because it's the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You choose players more or less on 2 or 6 player stat projections. You're not going against pros or sharks or anything like that. You just are picking. You can intermix basketball and football this weekend, by the way, because they've got the specials league for you. So if you want to play, you can play around various communities as well. And Prize Picks even has the reboot policy so that entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. Have fun during the basketball season. If you get hot, you can turn $10 into $250 with a few taps and a few right choices. Prize Picks is really simple to play. You make your picks, submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy game plan, enormous selection of players, and fun. Plus Taco Tuesdays. Those are your great ones to play as well. It's all at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Now, here's the special deal for you. Use the code LockedOnNBA. You get a first deposit match up to $100. That's a Locked On NBA. Use the code Locked On NBA, and you get a first deposit match up to $100. It's Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Today's show is also brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the #1 spot for you to get new small business owners. If you need to be looking for someone hiring, LinkedIn is the spot. The numbers are crazy. So LinkedIn has this incredible, vast network of more than 1 billion professionals. It makes it easy place to hire. But here's some of the great numbers. 86% of small businesses get qualified candidates within 24 hours. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs as the #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn also knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. So thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free today. So make 2024 the year you push your business to new heights, and do it with LinkedIn Jobs. Go to linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free today. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen. To the everydayers out there, you are awesome. All right, let's go to points gained. So points gained is the offensive metric that we look at on how a player uses the possessions they use on a given night compared to average. So on a given night, Joel Embiid is with his 27 scoring opportunities a night, a lot. He is 3.7 points better than if average players in the NBA had those 27 scoring opportunities. So for example, Giannis is second at 3.3. He has 24 scoring opportunities a night, and he's 3.3 points better than the average player. So here are the top players in the NBA right now. Joel Embiid is #1 at 3.7. Giannis is #2 at 3.3. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is #3 at 3.2. Nikola Jokic is #4 at 2.7. Kevin Durant's at 2.7. These all make sense. This passes the eye test. Lauri Markkanen has jumped to the 6th most impactful offensive player. This is why we're winning games, at 2.5. Jared Allen, 2.4. Domantas Sabonis, 2.1. Kristaps Porzingis, 2.1. Grayson Allen is having a bonkers season right now for the Phoenix Suns. That's right. Grayson Allen is at 2.1. And Obi Toppin of Indiana, who's playing basically big man minutes and dunking. Then Tyrese Halliburton at 1.9. Daniel Gafford at 1.9, Jalen Smith at 1.9, Jalen Duren at 1.8. The big guys come in. Kawhi Leonard, 1.8. Karl Anthony Towns, 1.8. Mark Williams in Charlotte, 1.8. Derek Lively, 1.8. Chet Holmgren, 1.8. So all the big guys. Luka Doncic, 1.7. Steph Curry, 1.7. Jalen Williams, who we saw last night, is 1.6. This is where Oklahoma City is incredible. We'll dig into it just one second. But Shai's 3.2, and Jalen Williams is 1.6. So they're a combined 4.8 with those two players. You got to catch that. Here's where Oklahoma City is built like a championship team and is a legitimate threat to win it. So those two players at 4.8. Chet Holmgren's at 1.8. So their top 3 players are giving them a plus 6.6 on a given night. And other than Josh Giddey, they don't have a negative player out there. Josh Giddey is a minus 1.2. He's hitting 37% of his threes, which is but he's still minus 1.2. He does some other things for them. Lou Dort's 0.7, Isaiah Joe is 0.7, Aaron Wiggins is 0.6, Davis Bertans is 0.5, Carson Wallace is 0.4, Lindy Waters, who played a few minutes, 0.3, Jalen Williams, the center, is a negative 0.3. But the whole point of points gained is that you get some positive players, and then if all the rest of your players are even, you don't have bad possessions. We saw it last night. So if you get it out of Shai's hand, you get it out of Chet's hand, you get it out of Jalen's hands, they're still getting a league average possession. Well, if those 3 guys are combined plus 6.6, right? What we just talked about, there's only 8 guys in the league, 10 guys in the league that are over 2.0. You've got to make up 6 points to catch 6.6 to catch those 3 guys. And there's only 10 players in the league that are 2.0 or better. You can't do it. So this is why Oklahoma City, and they're good defensively, it's just bona fide to win a championship. The Clippers, other than Russell Westbrook, have come close to doing the same thing. Kawhi's 1.8, Harden's 1.6, Zubac's 1.6, Powell's 1.3, Paul George is 1.1, Mason Plumlee's 1.1. And then Terrence Mann is negative 0.8, who plays. Bones Highland, minutes are being limited, probably good. And Russell's minus 1.4. Russell negates all the positives you get out of Norman Powell. He kills you. So the less Russell, the better off they are. But with them negating Russell, they're getting awfully close to being that same kind of team that doesn't have that. And Denver, Jokic 2.7, Porter 0.7, Justin Holiday 0.4, Aaron Gordon 0.4, Kentavious Caldwell 0.3, Jamal Murray's just 0.1, not having a great year. Peyton Manning's even. Their rookies are all coming through. Christian Brown's minus 0.4, not bad. Reggie Jackson's minus 0.5. They got a few negatives there because their bench players aren't great. But Oklahoma City really has this thing built masterfully. It's really awesome. That's the model. Now the question is, who are the players out there that are particularly good in points gained that maybe you could acquire at the trade deadline? Now let me say this. I'm saying this more for league general. For the Jazz, I get this question a lot. I don't actually expect the Jazz to be acquiring talent at the trade deadline to improve our team for this season. If they get a piece of a puzzle that would improve them for the long term, 2 or 3, 4 years down the road, I think we'll see that. But I don't think the Jazz are going to try to acquire a player to push them up so that they can get to 44 wins or 45 wins this season. I just don't see that. So who are those players? Malik Beasley in Milwaukee is one of them. Mo Wagner, center in Orlando. Aaron Nesmith, the Indiana small forward, probably not available, better than anyone realizes. Norman Powell in the Clippers, probably another one that's better than people realize, probably not available, though you never know if they do something else and you get involved. Derek White, certainly not available, but really comes out very, very well and worth mentioning. Sliding down a little bit, Kelly Olynyk comes into this. If you're another team and suddenly Kelly Olynyk's available, he would tell you that he could get you. Colin Sexton, 1.0 for a guard. There aren't many guards that are better. In fact, the guards that are better than Colin Sexton for the season in efficiency, if you count Paul George as a guard, Dante Exum, Derek White, Malik Beasley, shooting 46% from three, leading the league in three-point shooting, James Harden, Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Tyrese Halliburton, Grayson Allen, who we talked about, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Colin Sexton is in rare territory right now. If I was a team, I'd be like, oh, I want Colin Sexton. I want Kelly Olynyk. Ironically enough, we have some of the guys that you would want in this circumstance. Other players that kind of here on the list, Lonnie Walker Jr. in Brooklyn seems to have found an efficient way, shooting 46% from three, which might be an outlier. Corey Kispert in Washington might be a better player than people realize. Give him I don't know that he would be available, but Harrison Barnes in Sacramento, if someone acquires him, is a positive 0.7, which is big. Isaiah Joe of Oklahoma City, who I don't think they would move, but is just, I think, much better points gained than people realize. That's kind of what I highlighted, was players who are much better than maybe the world thinks they are. Aaron Wiggins, another one in Oklahoma City. Doug McDermott, San Antonio. It's going to be able to help somebody offensively. Very good points again. Tyus Jones, point guard, Washington, would be another one. DeAndre Hunter comes out well for Atlanta, which is surprising to me because frankly, my eye test on him is not super great. And Bojan Bogdanovic comes out as a very positive possibility. Wouldn't that be great for just fun to have him back around for that? That's predominantly the list. I don't see those being a lot of guys. Trey Lyles actually comes out pretty well in Sacramento. I don't see this as a list of guys I don't see the Jazz making a move for any of those players. What I would see is, like, if there's a player like Nazir Little, who's in Phoenix, who's kind of on the end of their bench, not playing, did our scouting staff really like him at some point in time and believe Denny Advada in Washington, who is playing and maybe kind of lost along the way. Jalen Suggs comes out great. I don't think Orlando's going to move him anymore. That was my target in the offseason, who I loved. He's gone from one of the least good, efficient players in the NBA to a positive points gained. So that's a positive. Wendell Carter in Orlando, as a player I've always liked, is a good points gained. He's a little undersized, but would be an interesting, piece of a puzzle if you like these guys for the future. But, from a standpoint of the Jazz, are they about to make a move that's going to make them to get to 45 wins through points, through these? I don't think I see that. I think, I still think we might be in asset accumulation mode, or a long-term player mode, young player that we think we can develop that somebody else has missed on, that we can pick up. That is Locked On Jazz today. We'll talk to you from Houston tomorrow on a Saturday. Hope everything is going well for you. Should be a lot of fun. Big road trip ahead. It'll be fun to be communicating with you throughout it. Thanks very much for tuning in to Locked On Jazz. We now send you over to the first ever 24/7 sports, national sports channel on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today.